Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I am your host, Andrew Davis. And before we really get into this interview, I do want to remind everyone that you need to support and financially support what you love, whether it is this show, my guests, wrestling in general, or corporate media. I personally do not care what you support as long as you are economically supporting it, because without economics and money being thrown to what you love, it does not get made. But enough about that, because I have with me professional wrestler CPA. He will not be taking off his shirt. I just want to make that crystal clear from the start of this. We are a family fucking friendly show tonight. But before, so clearly, we started this off wonderful. But welcome to the show.
Yeah, doing great. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be. You replied to my tweet a few weeks ago, and I looked to DM you, and I realized that you DM'd me in like 1950, and I was like, oh no, that's not good. I should probably respond to that. I don't know why I didn't see it, but it's here we are. We made it.
No, I'm super excited. Obviously, I'm joking around, and
Yeah.
I've been watching you for about 3 years. So, and I know you've been wrestling a lot longer than that. But I really do want to talk about the last 3 years and about five promotions, because that's what I know you from. I think a lot of people know you from that. And I think the best place to start is 2020 with Kip Stevens and the dog collar match, because that was a pretty intense match, and Kip was on this show, and he spoke about it. And what was that like? Because that's a pretty intense rivalry that's been going on for a very long time. I don't know if it's done yet per se, but the two of you had some wars, to put it nicely.
I think it is done, or at least whenever we're in the same wrestling setting together, it kind of rekindles itself. The dog collar match was, um, I don't think I had been in a dog collar match at that point, and I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I'll say that. At the time, I was kind of going through a little bit of a weird, like, wrestling quarter life crisis where I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really, I don't know. Things were a little furry at the office, we'll say. So I I don't know. I was just kind of going rogue with my, what I was wearing to the ring and how I was presenting myself and everything. So I don't know. The gloves are off for that match just cuz things seem to be going in a weird direction as far as on a
So
social standpoint.
let's even talk about that, because one of the things that I think people don't understand is that, just like everything else, wrestling evolves and
Mhm.
wrestlers evolve. And obviously, you have gone through a bunch of evolutions just as a human being. CPA has evolved, your repertoire has evolved, and even as a person, we all evolve. And so,
Mhm.
what was this like, really? Because at this point, I think you were going through evolution. A lot of stuff was happening really in 2020, and then COVID hit. And so, what was this like for you? Because I feel like you're now where you need to be as a wrestler, and that you've reached sort of the next stage of evolution, if that makes any sense. And feel free to correct me or stop me at any point, but I feel like this was kind of one of those turning points for you in your career. And I went backwards and forwards with you, and I've been very much watching you the last 3 years. But what has that been like? Because I think it's a very unique thing when wrestlers start finding themselves.
No, you're absolutely right. Although I don't remember a lot of it because again it was around pandemic time and it was just weird and a lot of stuff was going on in my life and just in everyone's life obviously. But no, I think through kind of losing myself for it was a long time actually. Um I think through kind of losing myself in the details of what I was doing in wrestling, as you said, I found myself through that. Um, because I wasn't, I was just kind of wrestling. I was just being a wrestler. I was just, all right, I'm gonna put on trunks and boots. I don't know what was going through my head at the time, but I think I needed to I needed to throw some crap at the wall and realize it wasn't sticking. But in doing that, I was able to kind of reconnect with, what I had been doing before and how much more enjoyable that was and how much more creatively and just, critically I got out of that. Just like, and I say critically, I mean, like in my own head, even like even if I, you know, get some bumps and bruises during a match, I far more enjoy wrestling, being a wrestling CPA than I did just being a normal wrestler. And again, there was a lot of foggy details going on at the time that I don't know. I was just going through it at the time, I guess. And a lot of stuff on the personal side was just kind of sent me off the deep end for a little while, as far as, again, just creative, critical things like that. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
So even to talk about this too, and even to jump a little bit into 2021, I mean, obviously you had some great matches with people like Aaron Rourke, Bobby Orlando, Slade is another one, Davian, and then there's a few others, and then obviously I think you faced Max Caster as well. And so, I mean, obviously this I think was all in Cap, and Cap is an amazing company and train wrestlers really well. And so, what was this like? Because these are some of the matches that I know you from mostly. And, obviously, this was when I feel like you were starting to find yourself in certain ways and having the matches because I went backwards to researching you a lot because I didn't know some of the earlier stuff before. But what was that like? Because this was sort of the fun CPA, if that makes any sense. Because you as CPA, and when I see CPA on a card, I'm like, oh man, we're gonna have a fun, good wrestling match. Like that's how I view it, and that's how I view you right now, especially when we get to Wrestling Open. Every match you're in is fun.
Yeah, that I feel like the match with Slade at the Return of the Cap show, I think it was, that was kind of like, so I started, wearing the pink shirts and the button downs and the clip-on ties again. Last April, May, I don't know, one of those. And I was a little worried about just kind of losing that spark. I was like, I don't know if people are gonna like want to see this. I don't know if this is gonna translate anymore. I feel like maybe people have moved on from wanting to see a CPA wrestler. And that match with Slade, I went into it thinking I'm gonna get booed out of the building because it's Slade. Like Slade is a an entity to himself, and I was very well received by the crowd. And I don't get me wrong, I got my ass beat during that match quite a bit. I think I got a concussion during that match, actually, if memory serves correct, which I think it does, despite the fact that I did get a concussion, and that is most certainly a detriment to memory. But yeah, during that match, I kind of, even in my mental fog, I definitely felt like, all right, we're back. We're hitting the ground running now with this.
Let's even talk about that because it's very interesting right now, and I come from the comic book world. So I have a friend who wrote a book, and then the book did really well, and then he wanted to write. He said, "Oh, this was going to be a one shot," and then he had to kind of backtrack because the first one did really well, and he hit lightning in a bottle. And that's what this almost seems like, is that you were just going to test the idea, it seems, and then you found something where the crowd was like, we like this and this is fun, and we want to see more of this, and you realize that it worked. And it's one of those things, because I feel in wrestling sometimes you have to try 4 or 5 ideas before you find the right one, or sometimes you just strike something because you're like, man, this is a stupid idea, but why the hell not, right? And then it's like boom. And then what was that like? Because you must have known immediately, right, when it was going on. You're like, man, I hit it perfectly.
Yeah, so my first few years of wrestling, I would get, I'd get good reactions. Like the crowds were. It wasn't. It goes beyond the crowds being into it. It goes into like a whole personal thing. Where when I was growing up watching wrestling, I was, of course, I was into the wrestling part of it. I liked Bret Hart. I liked Shawn Michaels. I liked Ricky Steamboat and all the good wrestlers. But I mean, like, weirdly enough, what really actually got me into wrestling was guys like Kamala, Undertaker, Giant Gonzalez, Papa Shango, like all like the weird, like macabre stuff. And so, or like, the characters, like Junkyard Dog and like Hacksaw Jim Duggan and all those guys. So when I got into wrestling, I would always have people after the shows. And like, when I say always, I mean like almost every show I was on, whether it was at Rahway for Wrestle Pro or whether it was in some random place in Brooklyn or Pennsylvania or West Virginia, or whatever, all the weird places that I traveled to in my weekends. And I would always run into people who would say like, hey, my mom is here. She's never watched wrestling. She hates wrestling, but she really likes what you do. And so that sort of tapped into my very vain, selfish want to get people who don't like wrestling to like wrestling. Because
So let me touch on that too,
yeah,
because my friends are not into wrestling, and we were gonna go see a movie, but I had to upload something really quickly, so they had to wait around for me for 10 minutes. So while they were waiting, I showed them the Invisible Man match at GCW Spring Break,
yeah,
and they immediately just started laughing, and they immediately got it, and they're like, "This is wrestling," and they're into comics, and I don't know if it's macabre stuff, but it's suspending belief is what I like to call it. And they're like, dude, this is great, man. If this was wrestling, there was a card match like this on, the card every single time, I would be into wrestling because, it's one of those things where, and that's the match that I like to show a non-wrestling fan because you'll either get it or you won't. But that almost seems to me that like, that's kind of what it is, because I think it's more enjoyable if you convince somebody who is terrified of wrestling or doesn't like wrestling to watch a match, and you find a match or a character or a wrestler they like, and like, I kind of want to see that character again, because it's easy to convince a wrestling fan than make somebody grow on an already existing fan. I think it's harder to bring somebody into the circle.
Did I lose you? Oh, sorry.
No, I was done with my point.
Oh, okay. Well, your picture froze. I was like, oh no, 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 not now, not now. He's in the middle of something. Yeah, that's something I really thrive on is so the one I just wrestled there 2 weeks ago. It's Fest Wrestling in Florida. It's a big punk rock festival. They have a bunch, it's been going on for 20 years. They just have a bunch of bands and stuff. And the guy started running wrestling shows a few years ago. Most of the people there are not wrestling fans, or at least I assume they're not, because they just want to see stuff. They just want to be entertained. They just want to be, talked to and appealed to and like, all that stuff. So when I go down there, every time I go there, it's like I have to be, everything I do has to be entry level because I don't want to overwhelm people. I don't want to say, oh, you know what this all is, so I'm just going to do a bunch of wrist locks and stuff, because I'm not there. There are 20 wrestlers who are better at doing that than me. And I don't know. I just feel like giving people that sort of entryway into pro wrestling is not bad, but there's a better way to do it. And for me, it's what I do. I like to, give people a more real life look into what a person who, like, I'm in good shape now. I wasn't always in good shape. I used to get picked on when I was a young CPA, and I used to get into fights all the time. And I used to get name called and all this stuff because I wasn't the biggest kid in school. So for me, CPA is me. CPA is me. I mean, I'm not, that's not even me talking. That's not even me talking hypothetically. CPA is me. CPA is what young CPA would do in a fight. So I'm never going to just go up to someone and be like, hey, I got some shit with you. Like, I'm going to, feel it out. Obviously, like, we're all there to wrestle and win matches and all that stuff. But like, you know, I'd rather, I'm not like a naturally aggressive person. So if I go into a match, I'm like, all right, I do want to win, but let's see what happens first. You know, let's see what the other person has to bring to the table. And that's me walking down the street, you know. And I feel like that's a more relatable slant on what we do than just going in there. And again, there are people who are great at chain wrestling and doing cool moves and stuff like that. And I, you know, all due respect to them, but I'm not. In case that wasn't clear in what I do, but I think I'm very good at what I do because what I do is what I do. Yeah.
I think you're great, and obviously you've had great matches. And I mean, the start, and then obviously, I mean, you had great matches with Aaron Rourke, and Aaron Rourke, I think, is really straight out of Cap in a lot of ways. I think Bobby Orlando, Bryce Donovan are also straight out of Cap. I think they were both trained there, right?
Yeah, all three of them, yeah.
And so you had great matches with them. And then was Max Caster trained out of Cap as well, or was Max later on added into Cap? But I mean, you've had some amazing matches with Max Caster and then Bear Bronson as well. And so what is this like? Because 2021 were all these great matches, and I thought it was great wrestling. I really did. And when I say great wrestling, my opinion of great wrestling is not doing a suplex or being technical. It's telling a story in a ring. Because to me, wrestling is not, athleticism is a part of it, but you're telling me a battle between two people. And I think Chris Hero said it really well. It's almost like a Shakespeare play where there's the first act, the second act, and then anything could happen in the third act. Yeah. And the good guys win sometimes, the bad guys win sometimes. Sometimes the good guys and the bad guys become the same, and they're fending off another thing, and you're telling a story. And so that's what I think really happened with all these matches, and even going into 2022 with some of these guys as well. And so what is this like for you? Because obviously a lot of these guys stepped up their games too. Aaron Rourke got a hell of a lot better in the last year and a half. Max Caster got massively better, and AEW, better to some degree. And then Bobby Orlando and Bryce Donovan are just fantastic wrestlers. So what is this like for you? Because you could hang with them. You're telling great stories with them. And that's what I love about what you're doing right now, more importantly than anything else.
It is just because of the reputation that Creative Pro has. It is, I always feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle with the way that I wrestle, the way that I present myself and all that stuff, because obviously everyone knows Cap as like, oh, this is where all the AEW guys, or this is where a lot of the AEW, like that's the AEW wrestling school, basically. Like, I think the largest collection of people out of all the places in the country or in the world that have, ventured their way to AEW are from Creative Pro. So being in that group, but not necessarily in that group, as far as like I'm still just an independent wrestler, it is a little intimidating. So I do have to kind of, for lack of a better phrase, I do kind of have to show ass when I'm wrestling with people like that. And that's not like something I would normally do. I mean, I say that, but I mean, no matter how many people I'm wrestling in front of, no matter what, first match, second match, third match, pre-show match, main event, whatever, I always want to leave everything I have. And I know this is like it's a very corny wrestler phrase, but I do always feel the need to leave literally all of me in the ring, whether it's, again, no matter whether it's against someone like Aaron Rourke, someone like King Crab, someone like, Brother Greatness at Open or Rage, whatever. I'm always like, let's go. Like, let's go.
I love Brother Greatness. He's great. He just followed me on Twitter today.
He's a little mean. He's a little mean, but he's very entertaining. Very entertaining human being. Very entertaining.
I think he makes me laugh. He really does. He just makes me laugh. Like when I'm having a bad day, like I've had a few bad Thursdays this year, and when I turn on Wrestling Open and I see Brother Greatness and somebody put the baby in his thing, That was classically funny. And then he took a picture and then he shoot another wrestler away when he was like playing with a baby. I thought that was golden. And like that's the moment of the year. If that doesn't win an IWTV award, I don't know what will. That needs to win an award. It's brilliant. It's so good.
If I was there for that, I don't think I was there that week. If I was there for that, I probably would have had to have been escorted out because I watched that on Twitter and I was like howling with laughter. It was the most insane, surreal, not the most insane, surreal. Like for all the clips we see every Monday of like death matches of people going through shark tanks and barbed wire and all this stuff like that is what really gets me. I'm like, all right, this is actually fun. This is the stuff I look forward to. I look forward to seeing Brother Greatness literally get a small child put into his collection plate. Like it does not get any better than that ever. And I feel like the first time there was a clip of me ripping my shirt off, I wanted when I saw, not to be vain, but when I saw the Twitter metrics on that clip going up and up and up, I was like, I hope I genuinely thinking at the time, I hope I'm giving that feeling to people looking at it and watching it. Like, oh, this is good stuff. Like, this is what I enjoy seeing. Of course, there are a few people who are like, oh, would Bruiser Brody do this? And I'm like, no, he wouldn't. But Bruiser Brody didn't wrestle with a button-down shirt on, so
you could
he wouldn't
on
do
my
it.
show. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm generally a wholesome wrestler, but yeah, like fuck, like let's no Bruiser Brody and Nick Bockwinkel and all these guys wouldn't do that, because they had different styles. What are you gonna do?
You
But
need to talk about that though, because I thoroughly enjoy when you take off a shirt, and I think it's hilarious, and I think it's evolving the match. Like, because the whole thing for me is that I want to be entertained when I watch wrestling. I don't want necessarily to see the same thing. Where if I want to see a technical match, I'll watch Ray Jazz and Neil O'Neill go at it, and that was a technical match. If I want to see a Hoss go at it, I'll watch Tyree Taylor go at somebody else, And when I see you wrestling somebody, I'm like, cool. He has a shirt, then he has a shirt underneath. And I'm like, yes, finally, now we're at level 2 CPA. And then you take off another one, we're at level 3, and I know the match is getting serious.
yeah,
If you took only off one shirt and then I was robbed, I'd feel disappointed. And that's what I love about it. And meanwhile, I pour myself a rum and Coke on my Thursday nights. I come home from work and I'm watching Wrestling Open and having a great time and detoxing from my week because I don't work on Fridays. So I'm like, this is awesome. And that's what I want, is that I find it enjoyable and I thoroughly enjoy it. It's the same thing with Ray Jazz as the jazz tip of the day. It works. And I think it's great. And I think this is the problem that everybody has in wrestling, is they forget that it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, that's that's like something that there are collections of wrestling fans who do not enjoy what I do, and that's fine. That is 100%.
They're just wrong. They're just wrong, and we could just acknowledge that.
Okay, fair. Yeah, it's for everyone. Wrestling is for different tastes, different walks of life, different preferences. That's fine. Again, like as I was saying before, I just want, like, you go home from work, you pour a nice little drink, and you watch Wrestling Open. I want everyone to have the same kind of like, oh, CPA is wrestling tonight. I'm gonna have a good time watching a few wrestling matches tonight because because I'm there. Obviously, there's a million other people who you could be like, oh, I'm gonna enjoy watching this guy or that guy. But again, I want people to look forward to it. I don't want it to just be like, oh man, this is gonna be cool. But then, like, you could say that about anything.
But I also think that, sorry to interrupt, but I also think with Wrestling Open, it works really well because Wrestling Open only has 10-minute matches. And that's the other thing that I think is really beneficial to what you're doing too, is that let's say that I'm not in the mood for a particular wrestler that night. I only have to tolerate that wrestler for 10 minutes on Wrestling Open. And
Mhm.
that's a big deal because let's be realistic, my attention span has decreased just and so has humanity's collectively. And look, there are matches on Wrestling Open that I'm like, I don't get it. I don't know these wrestlers where they're, being brought in for a spot. Maybe, Wrestling Open's testing them out. Maybe they're bringing in talent. And I don't know who you are. And I don't really care about that match. Doesn't mean that it's not a good match. I just don't know who you two wrestlers are. Or maybe I'm just in a bad mood. I'm like, I don't really feel this match right now. But then again, there's other matches that I do feel. And that's the nice thing, though, is that it's only 10 minutes because you've watched matches that were 30 minutes. You're like, man, I only wish that match was 10 minutes. And you've watched matches that were 3 minutes saying, I could have watched that thing for 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so with Wrestling Open, that's what I think really is nice about you is somebody, if you're not somebody's cup of tea, they're only stuck with you for 10 minutes. And so guess what? The hatred isn't there to the same degree. And it sounds weird what I'm saying, but if I only have to tolerate a person for 10 minutes versus an hour, my anger towards that person is significantly lessened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's something that's super beneficial to everybody on that card because not every wrestler is going to connect with every person.
Yeah, and of course I've had nights where I didn't really feel like I connected or at least I felt a lesser connection than usual. Yeah, again, I love hearing that. I love hearing that you're like that people are like, okay, CPA is wrestling tonight. I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna make this. So what I was trying to say, what I was gonna say before is like, I want to be destination viewing. I want to be, the king of the hill of the wrestling show that someone's like, oh, I gotta watch this week because I want to see what kind of wacky stuff CPA is going to get himself into this week. Like I wasn't a huge TV guy when I was a kid, but there are very particular things that I watched every week, and I want to be that person for someone, or every month, or every other week, or whatever, whenever I'm coming into the town, whatever it happens to be. I selfishly want to be that for as many people as humanly possible.
No, it's we all want that to some degree. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, in which that I'm a podcaster and I'm interviewing people, and I want my audience where I've gotten messages from people that, man, I was having a rough day, and you had a great interview with so and so, and it really was helpful, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, or I was listening to it, and it makes my Mondays better. And I've had that. I've had a lot of stuff. So we all have an ego,
Mm-hmm.
and to say that we don't, um, but I view it differently where I just think that you really help the show flow because let's be realistic, if I was watching 10 of the same matches in a row, it would not be an enjoyable show. And it's nice in that way, but I do want to table Wrestling Open because I do want to talk a little bit about Limitless
Mm-hmm.
because I think Limitless was really cool what they did. And you had a bunch of matches, and the road was a brilliant concept for a really, really bad situation. And I know that you had some matches, I think, with Alec Price, Kennedy Copeland, Kirby Wackerman, Dylan Nix, who's great, Delmy Exo, who's been on the show, Boomer Hatfield, and I forget Boomer's new name, Jeremy Leary, and then dealing with the Hive, Armenian Chaos is another one, Rip Bison, who's very scary, very scary.
Sure is.
And so, and one of the things is that what was this like coming into the road between seasons 2, or was it season 1 and then season 3, or was it season 2 and season 3? I forget.
I think I was on pretty much every iteration of it. The first one was the what was it, the pandemic at the dojo or whatever. Again, it was an interesting time, like I didn't know. I thought the pandemic was going to last 2 weeks. You know what I mean? I was like,
We all thought that. So I'll tell my story very quickly. And
go ahead.
I started doing this stuff live. So I had another show, which is fusing with this show. And I was like, look, this is going to last maybe 3 months. I'll get maybe 30 interviews in. It won't take off. Nothing will happen. Nobody needs my help anyway. I'm just a schmuck, you know what I mean? And I'm a guy and I'm a little backed up, and maybe I'll interview 30 wrestlers, help sell them a few shirts, and then we'll all be laughing about this in 10 years, right? And I was wrong. And then it just didn't end. And then I'm like, great. And then it went from doing an extra episode while I was editing my first podcast to then doing another episode, then another episode. And then I was doing like 8 interviews a week. And I'm like, because I was out of work. And I'm like, well, I got nothing else to do. And some of them were rougher than others. And then it became this. So that I thought the exact same thing you thought, that like we're going to be laughing about this in like a month and a half, right?
Yeah. The first pandemic at the dojo thing, again, we went, it was just so surreal too, because like we were driving up there and there's just nobody outside. And like, granted, like in Maine, there's really not a lot going on up there anyway. Like, I'm not even saying that to be like a jerk. It's just like, it's not, or at least the places you go for wrestling, there's not, unless you're like by the college, there's really not a lot going on. It's just very like, if there is a thing going on, there will be people there, but it's not like, I'm used to New York where there's a million people outside at any given time, day or night, rain or shine. We were just driving up there. There was just nothing. I wrestled in Canada the week before, like literally the week before, like 3 days before everything officially shut down. And we went through the border. And I was like, are we going to be able to get back in? And she was like, oh yeah, I mean, you're citizens, so we kind of have to let you back in. But yeah. So we're driving up there and I'm like, I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know. Are we all going to have to like stand outside and like stay away from each other or whatever? Are we going to have to like not touch each other when we wrestle? I didn't know what the circumstances were. Then we got there. It was like pretty normal. This is before, I think it was right before like masks were like pretty much required everywhere. Yeah, I had the match with Alec Price there. I had a few. I think I had 1 or 2 tag matches with them before that. And I was like, oh, this guy's like, he's pretty good. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got out of him. And it was a wildly physical match. And we only wrestled. It was like a 5.5, 6 minute match, but it was physical. But it was like, I don't know. So that was kind of stage 1 of my kind of metamorphosis from like late 2019, early 2020, where I had the match at Alec and I was like, all right, I think things are going to work out once everything goes back to normal. I think whatever I'm going for now is going to be good. And then obviously, like, I don't think I ever really reached that. I don't think I ever reached that level again until, again, like I was back wrestling as the wrestling CPA, and I had the match with Slade. Like, it was there were like some ebbs and flows, but the match with Alec was pretty much as high as it got for a while.
So even to talk about this though, because it was a weird circumstance, because obviously, and I mean, I spoke to Logan Black, I've spoken to Rip, I've spoken to Delmy, and a few other people. Abe Everett, Anthony Green, I've spoken to, and there's others. I'm trying to think of who else I've spoken to about this Alec Price. And the road, from my understanding, most of it was filmed where you had 2 or 3 matches, in a day or over 2 days, and it was all filmed. And obviously, I mean, you had some breaks in between matches, but then they edited it all later on and positioned it in. You didn't necessarily know the order that I was going to be in, but what was that like? Because it's kind of a weird way how to produce a wrestling show, handle a wrestling show, but it's also somewhat convenient. It's almost like taping, a bunch of episodes of television all in one sitting.
Yeah. Those are some long, long days. I mean, like, I think the one we filmed in, what was it, probably September, October. The first day we got there at noon, and I don't think we left until about 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't think I've ever watched that much wrestling in one sitting. and I've been watching wrestling since I was like 6 years old. I don't think I've ever watched that much wrestling in one sitting. I watched almost every match, unless mine was up next because I had to kind of just get my head right and figure out what I was going to do. But yeah, those were some long, long, long days. But you know, I got to like hang out with people that otherwise I wouldn't have seen. You know, like I got like pretty close with like Anthony Green and Abe Everett, and I got to know Davey Ender in that time a little bit, and I got to know like some other people like Love Doug, like people that I'm like friendly with now, who I just like peripherally knew through like Twitter. But I also got to see like TJ Crawford, someone I'm friends with, who I just hadn't seen, or maybe I'd seen him once or twice. But yeah, it was weird because again, we're going up there, we're like, how long are we gonna be doing this for? How many times are we gonna go up to like these secret like wrestling shows? I feel like they're like underground secret wrestling shows that like nobody knows about, and then we don't know like when the matches are gonna come out, and we don't know if people are gonna like from the road season 1 to the last time we filmed, my brain went through so many weird dips and metamorphoses, and I was just not really sure what I wanted to do with wrestling. I didn't even know if I wanted to wrestle anymore, because I was like, if I have to keep doing these weird secret shows up in Orono, Maine, I don't know how much longer I'm going to want to do these for,
And
because
to even talk about that a little bit too, because wrestling is very much. I was just speaking with Jess Moss before you came on, and that interview's out and it's live. And it was a great interview. And we were speaking about this, where I said that you have a competitor on one side, you have the referee. So that's the second thing in the match, or person in the match. You have your opponent if it's a singles match. And then the fourth thing is the audience in a lot of ways in wrestling. And I think that that's something that, as an audience member, I am just as involved in the match as the wrestlers to some degree. Because if I'm cheering or booing, and you've seen it where the audience is cheering the heel and the baby face needs to go over, and both those wrestlers are like, well, fuck, I guess you're gonna pin me today. And I've seen that happen. And if you watch closely enough, you can see the communication. And so what was that like? Because in a lot of ways, the fourth component of that match was taken out. And it's a weird way how to do wrestling. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but now this stuff comes out on Twitter, and now we, the Twitter audience, are telling you how you did to some degree, and you're getting that reaction as we're all seeing it. And while your fellow wrestlers are watching it, I don't think they're a fair gauge of determining really how the audience sees it, because they're another wrestler, and the audience that's always in there and the fan is a different, I think, interpretation of it. If that makes any sense.
no, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was strange too, because like you do things in front of a real audience, and most of the time they react how they're going to react. We were very kind to each other about what we were willing to react to, and that also got a little tiring, and like kind of like being in the shoes of a wrestling fan again made me kind of like respect fans a little more, because they're willing to, not all of them, some of them just kind of give up after a while or they get tired, but like we didn't have that option. We just had to kind of just stay there. And again, like it's fine. I got to see some cool stuff. I got to see some people do some really unnecessary things for YouTube matches, myself being one of them. Don't get me wrong. There was one day I wrestled TJ Crawford. We wrestled for like 20 minutes. And then I wrestled Rip for another probably 18 minutes, like 3 hours later. I was exhausted, but nothing is more exhausting than trying to absorb wrestling when it's coming at you one after the other, and staying interested. So I have a lot more respect for wrestling fans and the commitment they have to watching us throw ourselves around and throw each other around than I ever had before that. Because again, we were
Yes.
there for 12 hours a day, cheering for each other, booing each other, yelling, trying to think of like creative stuff to yell at each other because we were just like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I can't even keep my eyes open anymore. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time of day it is. And like, you don't want to go outside because you don't want two people to just wrestle for nothing. They're already wrestling in front of no fans and you're hoping that someone watches it on IWTV 2 months later. But yeah, it was fun, but there were some moments where I was like, I just kind of felt
Limitless did a good job with releasing it because they were running some contests, giving away free cards and stuff, signed. I
yeah.
got a Dylan Nix card for people who were participating, and that was cool. And they were good about that. And they sent a cool postcard from Maine. It's cool. I still have it. Um, and they were very responsive on Twitter for everybody who was tweeting about it and all that stuff. Um, and so that was cool in that regard. And yeah, I agree. I went on a 16-hour wrestling watch, and let's just say I rather embarrassed myself at one point that I do not want to talk about because if you ever call the police on yourself, it's not a good day.
Wait.
So,
Okay,
so I'll tell the story. So this is
please.
GCW's 24-hour stream of wrestling.
Right.
I decided that I was going to be smart and try to watch all of it. I got about 16 hours in before I passed out.
Okay.
I started at 8 o'clock at night. And then I conked out at like 6:30 in the morning.
Wow. So oh wow.
Now here's the kicker. I was tweeting about it the entire time.
For 10 and a half straight hours, I guess, right?
So if anybody deserves an award that day, like GCW should have been like, the next pay-per-view's on us, man. They should have just like, here's a promo code, dude. Like, you're a trooper on this one. Because I figured that no one's gonna tweet at these wrestlers at 3 a.m, so I had to step up.
Yeah.
I had to be a team player this round.
I respect you for that. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. I mean, I guess when I was younger, before I got into wrestling, I probably would have had the stamina to do that, or at least try to do that.
I had a few monsters. I had
Yeah.
a few other things in play, and it was a very interesting experience. But then what wound up happening is that you fall asleep, and apparently my phone was going off, and I didn't notice on your iPhone. But if you hit your iPhone a certain way, it brings up the emergency things, and then it immediately calls the police for you. So I learned that your iPhone is an extremely safe, thing. So I believe Apple should also give me some props too, because this is their next commercial for safety features.
So you
So now the police call me back. I'm like, it's Saturday though, right? They're like, no, it's Sunday. No, I'm like, it's Saturday. I'm looking at my phone. They're like, it's the 10th, but I'm like, it's the 9th. And then this police officer shows up, and she was very nice. She said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm sorry." I'm sorry. And then I had to explain to this very attractive female officer that I was watching wrestling. There's this stream. I'm kind of in the middle of it. Here's my ID. My Lucky Charms are like sinking in milk. and this is basically why you should never ever watch GCW for 16 hours or 10 and a half hours straight. And then I stopped watching for 2 hours, and then I continued the rest of the show.
but I just want to I want to like be a fly on the wall for when she gets back to the station and they're like, what happened? And she's like, some dude called the cops on himself because he was sleepy or so. You're like, what's the combo after that? That's so funny. I didn't. You said when you said before, call the cops on yourself. I was like, what? Were you like, you're like, I'm crazy. I've been watching. Like, I'm reporting myself, and I'm like committing myself to like a psych ward because I've been watching wrestling for 10.5 hours straight. But it's actually much funnier that you just did it on accident. That's great. I'm surprised I've never done that. I don't have an iPhone, but actually there was one time when I was a kid, my mom's work number was like 917 or something like that. And I dialed 911 on accident. The cop showed up to my friend's house. I didn't realize that I dialed 911 on accident. I just whatever. And they're like, someone called 911. I'm like, no, I called my mom. And then like at that moment it all sunk in. I was like, oh no, it was an accident. And they looked really upset. They were very disappointed in me for
I mean, this officer wasn't angry, because I picked up the phone. I'm like, "Yo, man, I'm really sorry. It's an accident. Like, I'm good. I don't need help. I'm perfectly fine. Like, I really don't need help. I'm good." They're like, "We're gonna send somebody anyway." And then they asked me. They looked at my parents, and I'm like, "I'm sorry." And then I had to like say to my parents, "I'm sorry."
wow.
But it was great. It was great. If I saw the officer in another situation, I probably would have asked her out at least for a drink because she was cute. But I figured it wasn't appropriate in that circumstance.
You know, at that stage you might have gotten away with it just because she was like, what did I come here for? Okay, I got a number out of it. That's cool. All right. All's well that ends well, I guess.
I mean, maybe I should have taken the shot. Who knows? Maybe she would have been a wrestling fan, and maybe she would have been like, "I get off in an hour. Can I come back?" And like,
Yeah.
it would be just saying, just saying.
Yeah, crazier things have happened to me, so I'm sure, you never know.
Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we would have gotten married in the ring, for all I know.
You got to watch 10.5 hours of wrestling first. That's the cocktail hour, the cocktail 10.5 hours.
No. That's the test to see if she qualifies.
Right. Yeah. That's like that's a litmus test. Yeah. See if it's meant to be.
This is so terrible. This is just so terrible. This is just absolutely terrible. It's gonna be all left in too, which is even better. I can't say that anybody will get smarter by listening to my show, but I will say you will be entertained. I will say that. But I do want to talk about Blitzkrieg really quickly, and we've obviously opened up a door here, so we should eliminate some in the meanwhile. And you had a 4-door elimination match, and that was crazy, and a lot of wood was broken.
Also, well, other than wood being broken, Slade chokeslammed me through the door, which deemed me eliminated. And then he kicked me out of physically kicked me out of the ring, and I hit my head on the steps on the way down, which hurt about 400 more times than the door. And I still have like a gross scratch on the back of my head, and I still have I must have started bleeding a lot again. It was like open, like it was like bleeding badly. Yeah, that was more painful. That was the first Blitzkrieg show back in like 2 years or whatever, a year and a half. And yeah, Slade forcing me out of the ring and me slamming my head on the steps, which nobody saw, by the way. Nobody cared. Like nobody was like, "Oh man, that was crazy when that happened." Nope, nobody cared because they were on to the next thing that happened in the match. I'm on the floor, my head is gushing blood. I'm like, "Yep, we're back, baby." Big comeback show. I gotta go get stitched. I didn't get stitches though. I just kind of did the wrestler thing and dealt with it. But it was yeah, that was fun too because I wasn't originally supposed to be the Wrestling CPA that night, but I just said, you know what, we're gonna do this right. Let's do this right. The last time I had been in that building, I wrestled Nick Gage and Jeff Cannonball, and I bled profusely. I said, you know what? We gotta do this right. We gotta turn over a new leaf, and we gotta bring the CPA back. It was it wasn't the worst night ever, except for that whole stairs situation.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I do not like stairs. They are not for me. They are not for me. And then you had a bunch of other great matches. You had obviously King Crab, Dr. Cube. I love Dr. Cube. I think you had a match involving Kaya McKenna, and
Yeah.
she's great. I love Kaya. I think she's amazing, and I would love to see her in like AEW or Impact. I think she would do wonders in Impact. I think she'd be a great addition to their knockouts, division. I really do. I think she'd add a lot of cool stuff to it. I think there's just a lot of matchups. Perry Von Vicious as well, Mac Daniels, and then Team Limitless versus Team Blitzkrieg, and that was cool too. And yeah, so what was this like? Because I think Blitzkrieg has been very good to you.
Yeah, Blitzkrieg was the first place I was regularly wrestling at outside of Creative Pro / Wrestle Pro, and I was just kind of there for a while, just kind of, like I was teaming with Kip there for a while. We were just kind of going through the motions and just doing whatever. And then like after Kip turned on me, it was kind of, I don't know, it felt very flat at the time. And I think that also lended itself to me, wanting to go in other directions. But on the note of feeling like, like getting my spark back, getting my groove back, when I had the match with Aaron Rourke last October, super last minute match. I don't think we were supposed to wrestle at all. And then I was talking to Jeremy Leary and I was like, hey, what's about having a match with Aaron Rourke? And he's like, I mean, if you want to fight him. I was like, I do. Let's do it. Him and I had a match at Wrestle Pro the month before, and it was again like physical match, but like I felt like I got a lot out of it as far as, and again, like this whole since last May, it's just been like getting back to where I was before I kind of lost my groove, so to speak, and now like building on top of that. So the match with Aaron Rourke, and then we did that weird what was it, like the Christmas office scramble last December, and during that match I was like, all right, I think we're gonna be okay. And then, like the Hermit Crab, the King Crab match, whatever their name is now, Hermit Crab, King Crab, that match, although I was very frustrated during that match because I threw myself through. Well, I didn't throw myself through a chair. I fell through a chair, and then Hermit Crab threw me in the ring and started choking me with his weird claw things. I was like, man, this isn't fun. This isn't great. So I had to. But after the match, I was like really fired up, and I was like, yo, Jeremy, give me a title shot, bro. I've been here forever. And I just yelled it, and everyone was like, yeah. I was like, all right, I guess people are cool with this, so I'm just gonna keep asking for it until it happens. And then like I had the match of Big Beef in March, and like, bro, that match was insane. I thought I was gonna die several times during the match, but it was just at the conclusion of the match, the reception that I got after winning that match, I was like, all right, we're gonna shoot our shot tonight. And I got on the mic and I was like, hey, I'm gonna be in the Mother of All Scrambles in June, and I'm gonna win it. I'm gonna get my title shot. Let's fucking go. And everyone was like, yeah, cool. And I'm like, all right, we're calling our shots now. Let's just do it. Let's just make that happen. So now next Saturday I'm wrestling VSK for the Blitzkrieg title. So, all night is always darkest before the dawn, as they say. So I had my dark periods. I had my moments where I wasn't sure what was going on. And next Saturday we're doing it. We're going going for broke. We just gotta get in there and just get our hands dirty and try to get a title. You know, I haven't won a title. I haven't held a title in almost 6 years, so I think it's time.
Let's even talk about the alphabet a little bit, because we got AEW, we have Paul Wright, we got RSP, and we got VSK, and we got you in a match. So we got a bunch of the alphabet going on here.
Yeah.
And then we have the formerly known as a very big show happening. Yeah. So what was that like? Because obviously I'm making a joke out of this, but it's very cool that you were in an AEW ring. Paul Wright is the big show, and you're with some of the best wrestlers in the world. And obviously it was a 3-on-1 handicap match. Made him look good, but still pretty damn cool to be in an AEW ring.
Yeah, that was that whole situation was just, I was literally the night before I left the office, and I got an email requesting my services for the next day at Arthur Ashe. I didn't know no context of what I was doing. I just knew I was going to be there. And I grew up in Queens. I was like, that's cool. Maybe I'll maybe I'll throw on a security shirt and go try to break up a fight or something. Who knows? We'll see. The night is young. The night hasn't even happened yet. And I get there and they're like, hey, you're wrestling tonight. I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe it'll be me, and maybe I'll get tossed around by I don't know, Christopher Daniels or something. Who knows? And then I look at the board, and I'm like, wait, I see my name, I see VSK, I see RSP, and on the other side I see Big Show. What are we? I just had to kind of I took a lap around the building. I'm like, no, that's crazy. I'm going to go back, and it's going to say CPA against Mark Quinn or something like that. Not taking anything away from Mark Quinn, but I've wrestled on shows and possibly been in cars with Mark Quinn. I have never wrestled on shows with Big Show before. And I go back to the board and it's still there. And I'm like, oh, all right, I guess we're doing that. And so I find VSK and RSP and I say, guys, we're wrestling the Big Show tonight. And we gotta make it count. Cause I didn't even know he was still wrestling. I thought he was just going out there and just being big, happy Paul White and just talking to people and stuff. And then I'm like, guys, we gotta strategize here. And RSP wasn't having a lot of it. And I'm like, all right, Vinny, I know you. Let's go in there and let's test his strength. Let's use his size against him. And let's double our powers to try and overpower him. It honestly though, to be real, it was wrestling in front of whatever it was, 20,000 people, 15,000, 18, whatever. It was a lot of people in Queens, New York, where I literally grew up and spent a majority of my life, and unbeknownst to me at the time, having several dozens of people that I grew up with there in attendance. And they're like, is that? And obviously I didn't have my phone on me at the time, but when I got done with the match and I was able to, correct my spine and my skeletal system after getting chopped by the Big Show multiple times, I look at my phone, I just have dozens and dozens and dozens of messages from people that I literally grew up with, people that I've driven with and I've cried with and I've shared classrooms with, literally people I went to junior high school with, elementary school, preschool, insane people. You just wrestled the Big Show. And I was like, I sure did, bud. I'm in a lot of pain. I'll talk to you when I talk to you. And I put my phone down. I was like,
So what is that like? Because I had Brian Malonis on last night, and he was in the only match on the Indies with Vince McMahon and John Cena.
That's right. Yeah.
And very cool moment. And Anthony Green, I think, was in. Obviously, the guy Brian Russell was in the match too, so he's one of two wrestlers. Anthony Green is one of two wrestlers to have a match where the Bella Twins were in it. That him and his opponent were. Brie and Nikki were on opposite sides while they were taking a break from WWE. And so this is one of those things where obviously a bunch of other people have been in the ring with the Big Show now, but even still, there is a handful of people. So it's a very short list. And what is that like? Because it's kind of a bucket list item in wrestling, and we all have them. We all have them. I mean, I could tell you I'm not a wrestler, but if I got a chance to be attitude adjusted by John Cena, or what I really want is I want to be RKO'd by Randy Orton. That's what I really want. And I'll pay real good money for it. Like I would write a check for like $5,000 to a charity to be RKO'd by Randy Orton in a heartbeat. No question. I wouldn't even hesitate. Because it'd be awesome. Now we're gonna film it, of course, because if you don't film it, it didn't happen. Yeah. But what is that like for you? Because it seems to me that it's almost like a dream match type thing, or it's a piece of wrestling history, not for the record book, but for you. It's a good way, I think, how to describe it.
Yeah, especially being that I didn't I don't I was such a fan of his when I was a kid, just because he was a big, like just a big grunty guy who would just toss people around and chop people, and like super athletic for his size and everything, and like he had like probably one of the best entrance themes of all time. It was just, I don't know. I literally can't describe it. The only thing I could say that was a very me moment, I went out there, like walking to the ring, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, holy shit, there's like a lot of people here. And then my next thought was, I'm going to wrestle in front of like 75 people in Ridgefield Park this Saturday. But I always have this moment, and this is pretty sick. And then I looked down, I said, I might die tonight, but let's go. Let's go to the ring. Let's go to the ring. Again, just so for me, at least at the time, like I'm wrestling Captain Insano from The Waterboy. I'm wrestling like the giant from WCW. I'm wrestling the guy who like Big Boss Man dragged him around on a casket. I'm wrestling like that guy, the guy who has had so many moments that have resonated so big throughout my childhood and my early adulthood and all this stuff. Like it's not who it is. It's what he did that had an impact on me growing up. Like, again, Big Show, like did all, like he did a nip up by holding on to the ropes. I know like 10 people remember that, but like stuff like that sits with me. So I'm in the ring and I'm looking across the ring and I'm like, this guy is the size of a house. He's been wrestling since 1995. He wrestled Hulk Hogan in his first match. He's been literally, he's probably wrestled in, I'd say, maybe 50% of the countries in the world. He's wrestled probably in every state. That's like insane to me. And this guy's just here and he's just going to wrestle a little CPA guy and he's going to probably kill me. But like, what? That's insane. It wasn't even it wasn't even like a, it wasn't even, what are the wrestlers call it? The mark out moments. It wasn't even that. I was just like, holy shit. And I get that with, like I wrestled Eddie Kingston before. It was the same thing. I was like, man, this guy wrestled.
Eddie's great. Eddie's been on the other show. He's fantastic. And I was stupid enough And I'm like, cool, I'll start with 10 of your matches. You're awesome. And then I didn't realize who Eddie Kingston was until I started researching. I'm like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah.
then he went to AEW. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. Like I wrestled him in 2015 and I'm looking across the ring and I'm like, this guy wrestled in Chikara like when it was first starting. This guy had matches with like Larry Sweeney, who is one of my favorite wrestling characters of all time. This guy has done so much stuff and now he's just wrestling CPA. Like that's crazy that was like, I don't even know if Big Show remembers the match he had with me. If he doesn't, that's fine. But it's the fact that like all roads led to that moment where I'm standing in front of 20,000 people, half of which I probably saw at some point in my life, walking down Myrtle Avenue in Queens, New York. And I probably saw the guy who was sitting in, 27C at McDonald's or at Glendale Diner or whatever. And I'm wrestling Big Show in front of that guy that maybe I got into a fight with someone in the crowd. Who knows? It doesn't even matter. It's the fact that all roads led us to this insane, surreal, bizarre moment where we were all in the same room together and I'm in a ring with like Paul White, the Big Show, the Giant, Captain Insano. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? It doesn't matter. It's insane. And we're here. And stuff like that, I'm always like, how did all
What
this
did I
start?
do in my previous life to deserve this?
Right. Like, what is this? What did I, like when I started wrestling, I figured, let me try to have a match. And if I have a match, let me try to have a second match. Let me try to have 5 matches. Let me try to.
It's interesting. It's so interesting. So I've been very fortunate as an interviewer to have all these great interviews. So I've had the Bushwhackers on, I've had Lufisto, I've had Mickey Knuckles, I've had Chris Daniels and Kazarian. I've had Tegan Knox, Leva Bates, and that's just some wrestlers. And then not to name drop, I would have had Priscilla Kelly, except she got signed.
Oh.
Still angry about that. It's a sore point. I would have had China too, except something happened there too. Still angry about it. I'll never get over it. The Priscilla Kelly thing is very upsetting. She's too damn good. I'm just waiting for her to take the title from Mandy. That's what I'm waiting for. But anyway, we all know it's coming. It's coming. And if WWE doesn't book it, then they're just dumb. But anyway, I asked myself, like with the Bushwhackers in particular, like, what the hell did I do right to get this far? Like I'm still asking that. And now I have all these wrestlers from Beyond following me in the last like 48 hours. And I'm like, what did I do correctly to get all this and to get even people on my show? And it's a weird question to ask because it didn't just happen, but I don't know what I've done right. And I don't know what I've done to get where I'm at beyond just, I guess, asking and being around for the last 10 years.
Yeah. You had both of the Bushwhackers on at the same time?
Yeah, and the writer of their biography too.
Wow. That's they were one of my favorites when I was growing up too. I love the Bushwhackers.
Yeah, their book is great. I'm only like 20 pages in. It's fantastic.
Wow.
It's on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, everybody. It's a great, this is the stuff, like they're talking about wrapping people up in barbed wire and
yeah.
And like they're talking about all the stories when like Bret Hart was a bushwhacker. and they're talking about what happened with Clinton. And that's a fun story. But
wow. That's crazy.
And it was like an hour interview, and apparently got connected with this guy John. And I might have booked that. He's a comic writer, he's a lawyer, and he writes a lot of wrestlers. And I think he's writing Glacier's biography now too. So when he has a cookbook coming out, I think at some point with some wrestlers, and there's one wrestler that I'm aiming for that I may try to get on before, and I got no problem saying who it is. It's ODB. Because
yeah, that would be cool.
I think ODB would be a fascinating interview. But anyway, enough about that. But yeah, no.
You gotta ask her about Tough Enough. I gotta ask her about Tough Enough,
and her splashes are interesting.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But to her credit, she finished the match. To her credit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that I think that's how I describe it, is that like, how did I get here? And then it's not just voice, it's not just wrestlers, it's voice actors, it's comic people, and it's like cosplayers. And I'm like, how the hell did I get here? And I
Yeah.
have no idea. And I'm still trying to figure it out, but not everybody gets that. I know plenty of interviewers who do not get half the shit that I've gotten. And they are, I don't want to make this sound like the way it sounds, but they are just as good as I am, if not better. But I don't know what it is about me. And miraculously, I must be doing something right. And you must be doing something right too.
I think for on your end, the way you pitched your podcast, you didn't say like, "Oh, I'm a wrestling podcast." You said like a pop culture podcast. And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to do that. That sounds fun." I'd rather do a podcast where we could talk about literally anything. Like I could talk about wrestling all fucking day, but if you don't mind me going off on a tangent about something that's not wrestling related, I certainly don't mind you doing it. And I'd rather just have that comfortability talking to someone. So I think you have that going for you, and that's pretty cool.
You know what is, it's just, it is what it is. And I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's an uncensored show as well,
Mm.
where, I mean, somebody said just be TV ready. And so you could curse, you could do whatever you want, but like, it's so weird for me because, it's also, I just ask and I just move forward because I've come to the conclusion that there's a lot more people that need interviews than there are shows. And
Mm.
so I have pickings, and my show has been 92% my choice this season and this year. The other 8% were owed favors, and certain people bought it. And so, certain people sponsored, and so I took care of those people because keeping the lights on
Yeah.
is the point. But even still, when I have 92% control over my show, and I get to keep the lights on, it's pretty cool. And I hit up weird people, and I also push it out like crazy. My
Yeah.
interviews, that's helpful too, where I share out a lot.
Mm.
And but I digress. It's super interesting. But yeah, no, I mean, I figured it's the Big Show, dude. I mean, I would love to be chokeslammed by the Big Show too. I think it'd be great. Who doesn't? Like,
It was a little peek behind the curtain after. So he chokeslammed me in VSK for the finish, and afterwards, once I kind of regained consciousness and like was able to like wiggle my fingers and my toes and be like, all right, we're still alive. That's cool. I look over to VSK and I kind of like reach over and I like hold his hand and I'm like, what is going on right now? What are we doing? Like, I don't know if he could hear me or not, but I was just having like a whole convo with him about just like, what is going on right now? Like same thing we're saying like there. Like, how did all the energy lead us to this point? Like and I guess to VSK, it was probably just like, whatever, I'm just here, whatever, like I'm just trying to get a job, and like that's fine, and he did, and good for him. But for me, I was like, wow. So like I had a match on 205 Live a few years ago, and it wasn't
with
really
who? With who?
on 205 Live against the Bollywood Boys. And it wasn't the same experience because I don't know. It wasn't I don't know, it just didn't feel the same, like obviously like wrestling for WWE is like lifelong goal, cool thing to do. But it was very, I don't know. I felt a lot more nervous for that. Whereas for
So
this, I was like, oh
the
wow,
way
this.
I view, because a lot of people have done squash matches for WWE, like Lady Frost had one, and I was like, that's kind of, it didn't feel like it was Lady Frost. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen Lady Frost wrestle probably about 12 times now, and it felt like she was being constrained versus, because I did see this match and it felt like you got to be CPA. I don't know if that makes any sense in that regard, but WWE, I feel when they bring in talent, restrains people from the indies. And it's okay to say, look, you got to put them over to some degree. But, why would you want to just strip somebody out and have a bland talent? Like, to me, that's kind of where I think WWE misses the boat, because you could have sort of like a fun 3-minute little segment, or even have a fun, finish to some degree. If you want to make the Big Show look like a beast, having that double choke slam and making the match mean a little bit more than just a plain squash match, and that's how I view, WWE's things, and a bunch of indies have done it. And I'm just like, it never ever sits well with me, and I don't like it. And I think it actually hurts the talent on screen more if there's nothing interesting in a squash match, because you're not really putting that talent over, in my opinion. You're just occupying airtime.
I don't need to do anything to make Big Show look like a beast, but full circle on that too.
That's just my opinion. But
yeah,
as a fan, I mean, I'm a little bit
no,
different.
that's fine. Yeah. Weird side story to this match, to the Big Show match. Eddie King commentary, all-timer commentary team too, by the way. I couldn't have asked for a better commentary team. I think it was Shivani, Mark Henry, and Eddie Kingston. Like, what an amazing commentary team for my AEW debut. Like, could not, just short of like Jesse Ventura being there, could not have asked for a better 3 people. Like, just such a good blend of like tone of voice and accents and styles of delivery. And Mark Henry, Big Show rips my shirt, and Mark Henry goes, "Oh, he thought he was wearing that shirt to work tomorrow." Hilarious. Then Big Show rips my tie off, looks at it, and tosses it in the air like it's like a booger. And Eddie Kingston goes, "Is he wearing a clip-on tie?" And like I was watching it when it aired live on YouTube or whatever it was. I was at the gym and I was listening to it. Like I felt like kind of a weirdo watching my own thing at the gym. Like, hey guys, look, I'm wrestling. I'm watching myself wrestle on my phone. I don't think anyone cared or noticed. That's besides the point. I'm listening to it and I hear Eddie Kingston going, "Is he wearing a clip-on tie?" I had to put the weights down because I was inconsolably laughing for like 5 minutes over that. Just again, such a good commentary team, just like audible, like an audible orgasm, just the best.
Well, I have to say, Eddie Kingston was beyond tolerable with me as a new interviewer who had no fucking idea what he was doing. I think I interviewed Eddie Kingston. It's like my 9th or 12th interview ever. And so I'm this stupid like kid who said, "Why the fuck not? This is easy." Boy, was I wrong. It took me about 50 or 60 interviews to get really good at this. And when I mean really good at this is get bad at it.
Yeah.
So it took me about 50 interviews to get very comfortable on a microphone, which, everybody's different in the interview space. But now I was asking not dumb questions, but not good questions. But he was beyond tolerable because I think you realize like 5 minutes in that I'm a brand new interviewer and you don't want to break me. So he was very tolerable and very honest, very open. And I wish I could interview him now because the conversation would be so much better. But I got what I wanted out of it, but it wasn't a good interview, but it was where I was at the time. But beyond tolerable, because sometimes people are not. And God bless Eddie Kingston on that. I might not, like everything Eddie Kingston does. And Eddie Kingston, like the Jon Moxley firework thing at AEW wasn't his fault, but that thing was a disaster. That thing was a disaster. And that wasn't his fault. That was just bad collectively. It was bad booking. But God bless Eddie Kingston on that, man. Because he could have easily just said, "Oh, I gotta go, man. I gotta go." And like he could have just destroyed me and snapped me. But instead, I think he showed a little grace. This is a good word. So God bless Eddie Kingston on that. I think Eddie is one of the guys that understands wrestling really well. And I think that he doesn't destroy somebody in wrestling.
Yeah.
In which I think he's very constructive versus destructive, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. I also think he's like, he's reached a point where he's like, what would I get? Like, what would he actually get out of like just like eviscerating you on your own show? Like nothing. It wouldn't make him any extra money. It wouldn't get him any extra anything. It would just be like
it might hurt him.
Yeah. It would just be uncomfortable.
Also, though, I hit him up at a time when I just think he was on the indies. And I think that this was way before. This was maybe like 8 years before AEW. So I hit him up probably at the right time. And I just said, let me shoot an email. I was at an anime con. I was sitting in between panels. And I was like, fuck it. What's the worst that's going to happen to me? I know. And he said, yes. When do you want to do it? And I'm like, great. I'm like, this guy's going to say no. He's sort of a superstar. And I was shocked. He's like, yeah, man, I can do it tonight. I'm like, can we do it Monday? He's like, yeah, we can do it Monday. And I'm like, great. I'm like, oh, snap. I got to write this interview now. Oh, it was fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. But, God bless him. But Mark Henry and Eddie Kingston on counter, fucking
the best.
I now need to watch this match.
I could just listen to it. I don't even have to watch it. I know what happens. I could just listen to it and be very pleased with my AEW debut.
That's insane.
Just audibly, yeah.
I mean, I love Mark Henry. The best Mark Henry thing was when he faked his retirement and he was in the pink salmon suit.
Oh, it was great. It was great. That's an all-time moment.
I think it's one of John Cena's best feuds. I really do. Really do. It's that and Edge are great.
Yeah.
2006 with Edge and John Cena. Brilliant. Mark Henry, though, and John Cena.
That was great.
Pink salmon suit. And the best thing about Mark Henry is that when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, he wore the pink salmon suit. And didn't his kid wear it too?
Yeah. Yeah, that was great.
It's epic. It's epic. So,
yeah.
But I do want to talk about Wrestling Open a little bit more because you've had some crazy matches. I think you had like 25 or 27 of them now. None of them were against Big Show or Mark Henry. I want to make that crystal clear.
Yeah.
I don't think that, but like a lot of the same people we faced, Bobby Orlando, Ava Everett is another one, Aaron Rourke. But the one that I thoroughly enjoyed was Ray Jazz because Ray Jazz is a douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
By definition, he follows me on Twitter too. I don't know why. He's welcome on my show any point because he's so talented and he is a hardworking man. But he plays a douchebag beyond well. he is MJF reincarnated tomorrow. Like I don't know how to explain that any other way. He is MJF. He looks like MJF. He acts like MJF. He's just the New Jersey MJF.
He's NJF, New Jersey Friedman. I don't know. That was I think that was my I want to say that was my third or fourth Wrestling Open match.
It was your third or fourth, yes.
Yeah. This is like when Open first started. Ray hadn't lost any matches yet. I still don't think he has to date, as far as
whoever beats him,
Rocket.
I know who should beat him. Megan Bain should beat Ray Jazz.
I should beat Ray Jazz, but that's
you can do that too.
We were supposed to have a follow-up match, and I didn't tell anyone about this, but I got COVID that week, so I couldn't make it. Yep, that sucked. That was not fun. So I got to sit at home and watch 50 Cal lose to him. That match, just because obviously I follow Ray Jazz on social media, and I see all the workouts he does, and he does rope climbing, and he does all these insane I never amateur wrestle. I never did amateur wrestling, as I forget how to talk as we go into. But we did a little bit of it when I first started training, and I can only imagine what those workouts are like cardiovascularly. So I was a little like intimidated by how my cardio was going to be for that match. But I will say I kept up with him. I wasn't disappointed, and a lot of people really liked the match. So, I lost.
I think he is very much Alec Price is very much the secret sauce right now of Wrestling Open. I think Tyree Taylor is a gear that helps make it move. I think Ray Jazz, in a lot of ways, is the engine. I really, really think that Alec Price is the steering, Tyree Taylor is a gear, Ray Jazz is the engine of Wrestling Open. I really believe that, and it's not against anybody else, but I don't think that every Wrestling Open that Ray Jazz has wrestled on has been a great show. Because he just pumps it up. He just pumps up that show, and he just gets that crowd hot and bothered. He just does it so well, and he really, I think when Alec Price leaves New England, Ray Jazz is the replacement, and that's big in a lot of ways. And I think people who do not understand that, they're gonna learn that real quick. I don't think it's Channing Thomas. I don't. I think it's Ray Jazz.
I think if Ray Jazz is the engine, I am the tuner on the radio, because
you're the tunage for sure.
Yeah, I get to change things up a little bit, and change the mood, change the mood a little
You're
bit.
the tunage and the rest stop.
Yeah. I'm a big because I pee a lot, so I'm a big rest stop. Big rest stop boy. Yeah.
No. The only reason why I say this is that it doesn't mean everybody else isn't important. It's the fact is that he's just, that's where he is right now. And I think people haven't caught on yet. And I think that Ray Jazz is not going to be in New England for long. I really think that I know he's young, and I think he needs a little more maturing. And I'm very, very critical of that. But I think if he gets 2-3 years and sort of becomes a little bit more of an adult and gets a little more experience in wrestling, gets some wisdom, I think he's going to be a superstar. I really do. And I think that he's going to go as far as he wants to go. Yeah. And then he has the look, he has the attitude, he has it all. And he is exactly what WWE is looking for.
Yeah, he's very athletic too. So and he has an athletic background, so that's a huge plus for him that a lot of us other wrestlers don't have. Myself, prime example.
He just doesn't know how to take off a shirt properly.
I mean, who does? Sometimes I get stuck too.
But even going further, because enough about praising him. I'm sure when he comes on, I'll just be praising him, and I'll be absolutely stroking his ego.
As if he needs it.
We all need our ego stroked all the time, including me. So if anybody would like to stroke my ego, I am more than happy to take every compliment somebody will give me. But obviously Mark Sterling is another one, and definitely related to Cap. That happened. Team with the Shook Crew, which is cool, and Dan Barry, that was cool. It's Bear Country and the Brick City Boys. Obviously, some Cap and some veteran, and Dan Barry's just great. He's just great.
Yeah, I like Dan. That 4-on-4 match was my first actual legitimate Beyond show that I was ever on. So that was like kind of special for me, just because it was, again, peek behind the curtain. Drew was not really the biggest CPA fan for a while.
He had a bad experience with his taxes. You have to understand.
That might be it. That might be it. But no, it took me a really long time to kind of get on his
radar level. Respect.
Get to where I needed to be in his palette for wrestling, I'll say.
So let's even talk about that too, because I've said this before. I think there are 2 or 3 main indies that you want to be on right now.
Yeah.
Beyond is one of them. For the most part, and it's been there for about 2-3 years. And GCW is kind of the other one, I feel, where those are really the 2 biggest. Now, which one's bigger? I don't know, to be very honest. And it's a complicated debate, and because it's how you measure it. It's also the reach. It's also the prestige, because both those companies, but there are people who are on Beyond and are on GCW. Also, I would consider ICW No Holds Bar to also be a contender in there as well, because that's really the place to be for deathmatch wrestling in certain areas too. So what is this like to be on a Beyond show and be involved in Wrestling Open? Because it does carry prestige and it does carry, weight. And I think that it carries just as much as if you're, a champion and you've been a champion for a while in certain companies. And I think that there's something there. And sorry to go on a little bit longer on this question, but I think that people have a different opinion when certain things are achieved in wrestling, like being on Wrestling Open constantly, because not everybody gets on Wrestling Open.
Yeah, there is I definitely felt maybe not so much at the Please Come Back show, but after American Rana, when I wasn't really like in the match, but the little WLC match I got involved with. After that was another stage of like the how CPA got his groove back story that we're currently in the middle of, just because that was my first time. Like, American Rana is the biggest Beyond show of the year, other than maybe like the New Year's Eve show. So
yeah, Heavy Light, The Crown, and American Rana are like the two biggest.
Yeah. So being on that show and coming out, and maybe, I'm sure a fair amount of the audience didn't know who I was or weren't super familiar with what I do. So being able to come out, be involved in like a pretty like big match for, as far as prestige and where it was on the show, and getting the reaction from the audience that I wanted but didn't necessarily expect, was it definitely like it was definitely, going back to ego strokes, it was definitely a big old ego stroke for me, just because afterwards I was like, all right, I think I definitely have an extra layer of maybe not prestige, but like I made an impact in a match that was, again, like Shook Crew was in it, Swoggle was in it, Joey Eastman was in it. Like there were some pieces in that match, and I literally could have just been there, not at any. I could have been completely forgettable in that match, because there was the other WLC match that happened a few years ago. There was a lot of people involved with that match, and I'm sure there were people in that match who just came and went, nobody noticed them, and that was it. They did their little thing and then they left. I like had people literally say like I was like the MVP of the match, even though I wasn't technically in the match, but I was involved with it and I made quite an impact apparently in my time in that match. So a moment like that and getting that kind of reaction, getting that kind of reception, getting praised, not praised, I feel weird saying praised, but getting acknowledged by other wrestlers for what I did during that match was pretty cool and validating. And I felt like, all right, like this is like the next, that was a hump I had to get over, being on Beyond's biggest show of the year, having a cool, memorable part of that match and that show was huge for me. And I don't know, it just felt like I had made it. I had, well, not made it, but I had arrived to the next level that I've been wanting to be at for a
It's
while.
interesting, right? Isn't it interesting when you feel that you made it or you've leveled up? Like I hate to use the word level up, but after I did my Bushwhackers and then I had Lufisto on and I've done Chris Daniels, and then all of a sudden certain comic people, I feel like, oh shoot, I'm making it. And then now, today a bunch of wrestlers are following me and a bunch of wrestlers are now saying, hey, yeah, I'll come on your show when you thinking. And it's weird because certain people also get back to me really, really quickly. Like I have people in the comic world who I shoot them a message and 5 minutes they're like, oh, here's my schedule. When do you want on? I'm going to be talking about One Piece Red with Bryce Donovan at some point. And that where it's going to be like, nah, and I might actually bring somebody from One Piece in, which will be funny, but he doesn't know that yet. I'm still working it out, and we're not going to tell him. So hopefully he's not listening. This way he'll show up and be like, "Oh shit, who the fuck's this guy?" Be like,
That's cool.
"Oh, just the voice of Jinbei. No worries." It'll be really funny. It'll be a funny moment, right?
I love that. I love that.
It'll be really funny, especially because we're gonna go live, and I'm gonna bring him in live, and then I just want to freak him out because he's a huge One Piece fan like me. I have a lot of friends across a lot of sectors now, but again, like I don't want to, because I still feel like I have to prove something every day, though. I just feel though that I know I'm now leveling up, but I'm not trying to be cocky. But like I don't know how to explain that to somebody, and it's a little bit different, obviously, in wrestling. But I know that I'm decent at this now, and that I'm not shitty.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that, and it's important that I can hang with certain people and in certain groups that I really shouldn't be hanging in. But when I hang in those groups, I'm treated as an equal, despite not necessarily being qualified to some degree. So that's kind of how I view it. But again, maybe I have a different view, but it's also taken me like 9 years to get here. So
same, literally 9 years. One thing I was told very early on, and I think about it literally every day. And some days it frustrates me, some days it keeps me going and kind of gives me a little extra, poke in the ass to keep going. Be so good that nobody can deny you. And I think that's a very important. Actually, the same person who told me that also was on a podcast. He didn't tell me this directly, but the same person who told me that was on a podcast, and he said, you need to find your why. I didn't really understand it at the time, but now I think I'm starting to understand it. You need to find why you're here. You need to find your place, find your, like you were saying before, like so-and-so is a cog in the wheel, so-and-so is the engine, so-and-so is the carburetor, whatever.
It's funny that you say that, because there are people that I got to interview this year that I asked 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And obviously I have a lot more skill now. I have a lot more interviews, and they don't necessarily remember me asking. Maybe my name popped up, but now I think what's happened is that people are like, you've been pumping like crazy, and that 5 years ago you had only 150 interviews. Now you have 700 out there. Like, clearly I need to be here. And what I'm now starting to learn is that I like name dropping, and also people, I know what names to drop in certain circles, and they're like, if my friend was on this show, I have to be on this show.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Again, it's you gotta like, and again, like you said, like, I don't want to sound cocky when I say things like this, but I do feel like I am starting to reach a point where I'm good enough that, or not good enough, like I'm not like settling at a certain point, but I think I'm getting to a point where I'm good to the point where it's getting harder to deny it or ignore it.
I'm at the point where I feel that I can ask somebody who so I just asked somebody who did $100,000 on Kickstarter, and I just asked, and I mean, I knew him slightly before, but I feel comfortable enough to ask.
Yeah.
Him doing that, and I feel it as an equal, and then we're having an hour and 45-minute conversation about everything, and his writing, but I feel that I'm an equal at the table, and I also know that I'm an equal at the table. And so where 5 years ago I probably wouldn't have been. And I've also had private conversations with certain people who are well respected in the comic book community that people would kill. And the only reason why I've had those conversations is because I'm an equal and I'm respected at the table. And those people say, look, we want you to win. And I don't just spend 4 hours with somebody helping you figure out your business, for free, because I see something in you that's going to benefit a lot of other people, and I want to give back. And again, not to sound cocky, but I understand that I'm an equal at the table now. It's a very, very weird situation I'm in, because in other areas I'm not an equal. But it's tricky. And a lot of that's happening in my life, I feel, at the same time now. And I'm 29, and it's really weird because I feel very awkward in my body right now because of it. Like, I don't know, like, how you feel, but like when all of a sudden you're an equal at a table, but you don't, across like 9 different sectors, like you feel like an imposter in your body. It's weird.
Mhm.
It's weird. And then people are like, oh, I'll be on your show. Absolutely. You want me on your show? Thank you so much for asking. I don't feel like I belong on your show. And I'm like, but you kind of do. Like, I don't know how to explain that, but it's so weird. But yeah.
No, I was actually thinking about that a day or two ago. How, I don't know, I feel like since I've been doing more, especially this year, and yeah, like when I was in my younger years in wrestling, at least, I was just literally doing any show. If there was a location and there was going to be a wrestling ring there, whether it was in front of 200 people, 10 people, 6 goats, whatever, I was going to be there. Did not fucking matter to me at all. Quantity over quality, though, which is it's good to get the reps in. It's good to get better. It's good to learn who likes what and what to do in front of who. But I think now there is quantity, but it's all quality for the most part. The quality is ticking upwards every week. And so to kind of piggyback what you were just saying, I was thinking about that recently where I was like, I feel like I do have some level of respect from people that I didn't feel like I had a year ago, 6 months ago, even. And I think it's just because now I know CPA is like me as CPA,
You know what you're
CPA
worth.
being CPA being on a show adds something to it. So you know, you could have the trapeze artist, you could have the dancing elephant, you could have whatever. Here's just the fucking clown car. And I don't mean to say that as like, oh, I'm like
It's
this
so
is just
interesting.
it's just a comedy act, it's just a this, but like it's something that's gonna kind of give a very, very weird but needed break to everything else.
That's interesting because one of the things that I just had a great interview with a legendary comic writer and artist, Mike Barron.
Mm,
And I don't want to get too much into what Mike Barron's doing, but something good or bad, it's just a little controversial, his book. But I said to about 5 other comic people asked me, and I was like, this is a really good stopping point in my comic realm of what I do on my show. And so I've actually refused interviews, and it actually makes my, you know, position bigger. It makes me better. It makes those people say, wait a second, why are you not doing this with me right now? And it's because I'm now going into more wrestlers, some more voice actors, and some others, and I'm taking a break, and then my season's ending right before Thanksgiving. But I also understand, and I'm looking at some of these people, I'm like, not to be an asshole when I say this, but your book is okay. You're not at that level. So if I put you before Mike Barron, it would have been okay. But I don't want to put you behind him because that diminishes him because I just ended on a strong position. And also I've done about 40 less interviews this year, but I felt like the interviews were better. And so
mhm.
I'm actually now being more selective. And so when I reach out to people, I'm not reaching out to everybody. And I've had weeks where I didn't interview anybody because I didn't think anybody was good that
Mm,
week to be on my show, or there was no good comic project or no good wrestler, or a wrestler couldn't make it, or I couldn't find a good cosplayer, somebody who impressed me.
yeah.
And I hate to say this, but it's a better show because of that. Becoming way more selective. It sounds mean, refusing people, saying, I'm not interested. Like, and I like, it sounds like I'm an asshole when I say it, but the show is better. The guests are better. There's more control. And I
Mhm.
think that, I'm looking for people, and it has nothing to do with viewership. I've interviewed somebody who had 100, followers on Instagram, and the interview was better because they were that talented versus somebody who had 15,000 who asked to be on my show and I wasn't interested.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird because technically they would have shared it, might have gotten to more people, but the person who I interviewed might not have been a good interview. And like
Yeah.
it's so weird. And I think booking and wrestling is that. And I also think it's the quality where you're being booked. Because let's be realistic. There could be a show that's a brand new company that pre-tapes their matches and then gets it onto IWTV as a premiere, or you could be on Wrestling Open. That's called what it is. Wrestling Open has more weight
Mhm.
than that show right now. And me and Tyree were talking about this. The idea is that knowing your worth is so important, and even understanding the worth of what being streamed and viewed into X amount of homes is worth. Because I'll be very honest. I mean, if I could get my podcast on IWTV and I could premiere an episode, I would do it for free because the viewership would be worth every goddamn penny in
Mhm.
social media for me. It'd be worth every goddamn penny. I mean, I'm sponsoring a match on Wrestling Open tomorrow. It's
Oh,
worth
nice.
every goddamn penny because the amount of media that I've gotten without even the match, just on Twitter, is worth every penny. Beyond has what, like 15,000? I
They have a
think
lot. They have a
on
lot. Yeah.
Twitter, they tweet that out. Legitly, that thing, my name and my Twitter thing, I've gotten like 9 wrestlers now following me that now I could shoot a DM to. And I
Yeah.
guarantee I'm going to get at least 2 or 3 of them on, an interview. And
Mhm.
one of them I've been eyeing for a while, Riley Shepard. So I'm not going to pretend here. And Brother Greatness just followed me. I'm eyeing him too.
Mhm.
Because come on, who doesn't want to talk about his, I guess his plate, for lack of a better word. I can't think of the word. His
Collection plate.
collection plate. Yes.
Yeah.
But sorry for ranting, but that's how
No.
I view it. That's how I view it. And maybe I'm a weird one in that fashion, but Wrestling Open to me is worth a lot more money, or even taking less money if you're a wrestler, because your name is going to get out there, and that's worth something. So if one promotion is going to pay you $100 more on Thursday night to pre-tape something and Wrestling Open's going to stream it, you should go to Wrestling Open every time, because that $100 is not going to make or break you, but you will get more than $100 in social media on Wrestling Open just by being in a 5-minute match. Because guess what? We're all going to tweet about it tomorrow night. There's, I think, 6 sponsors. I know my friend from What's Up Wrestler, Justin Del Rio, and he's going to be tweeting about it. I'm going to be tweeting about it. Person who's probably sponsoring Kennedy Copeland's going to be tweeting about it. And all 6 of us are going to be aggressive tomorrow night. Drew Gulak is going to be tweeting about Wrestling Open tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my shit and his shit and our 6 sponsorship, we're all going to be boosting each other up directly and indirectly.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's I didn't really start to think about it in that sense until recently, where, again, like, and I guess a lot of it is I didn't want to be like, oh, I've been wrestling for 9 years, so you should.
You don't want to make it about the money
Well,
and
no,
the
not
business.
even that. It's more about like, oh, I've been around for this amount of time, so I deserve this. Because that's not it. There are people, Eddie Kingston, he wrestled for what, fucking 16, 17 years before he got that break, So like I feel weird being like, oh, I've been wrestling for 9 years, so I should. I don't. I don't deserve anything. But I think at this point now I have earned a nice little niche, a nice little like.
So let me ask a question to you on that, because this is, and I'll state my opinion. So I have certain knowledge on economics. I have certain knowledge on building a dividend portfolio and running my eBay business. And so when I talk about that, I deserve to be paid really well for that knowledge.
Mhm.
Would be because what I have figured out, I could save people legitly thousands of hours and probably about $100,000 in an expenditure. So I deserve to be paid, my hourly rate
Yeah.
to consult on this. And I have a very specialized niche. And I also am more than happy to build somebody's business if they want to pay me and give them the blueprint on how to do it and give them the support that they're going to need for the next year and a half to make sure that they build a $15,000 to $25,000 eBay business. So I deserve to be paid for that. I also happen to think that I have a lot of knowledge in podcasting, and so I deserve to be paid for that. But I don't deserve to be paid for it because I've been doing it for 9 years. I've been running an eBay business for X amount of years. I deserve to be paid because I produce results.
Yeah.
And so if I was in doing this for 1 year and I was producing results, I would still deserve to be paid. So, I hate to say this, and I'm going to be on my friend's show on Monday, and we're going to be talking about this. And so if I say to a guest, I don't really want to interview you, I've earned that right. I've earned that right for two reasons. A, I'm the one paying the show's bills. So first and foremost, when you mortgage your house to do this, or you take money from your paycheck, or you sell a comic book to start this show, yeah, you get to call shots. That's first and foremost. Same thing with you. It's your body. So I'm curious how you feel about that, where, you have knowledge, you have wisdom, you have honed your craft, and you feel that it's more of that? Because when people say I deserve something, I hate that word. That I don't think I deserve jack shit, but I have certain attributes that will save people money, and I'm a strong believer that if I can make you money in some fashion, I deserve a piece of that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so
I'm a capitalist, in case anybody didn't know.
I could tell, which is fine. It's fine. Being a capitalist is, I mean, we are technically in a capitalist country, so that's fine.
I believe that if I can make you money, I deserve a piece of that, what I brought you to the table. That's
right.
what I believe.
Right, and same. And I know that, like I'm gonna be at WrestlePro on Saturday, and my first ever time main eventing a Rahway Rec Center show. I've been wrestling in that building for 8 years, since my second year in wrestling. I've wrestled there a few dozen times, never been a main event. I know that there are people who come to those shows to see me. I don't want to sound like an asshole when I say that. I don't want to sound like
You can. You might earn it. You might earn the right to sound like an asshole every once in a while.
Yeah, like I don't want to sound like I'm stroking myself when I say that, but I know for a fact that there are people who go to WrestlePro shows because they want to see me, or they start going to WrestlePro shows regularly because of what I'm doing. So yeah, that, like, to me, that's really like the not brick and mortar, but like that's the provable thing to say, I have earned this, and this because I do the thing that I do, and people are invested in it in some way, shape, or form, be it monetarily, be it critically, be it whatever. People are interested in it. People are invested in it.
There are people who want to be on my show because they know the interview is going to do well. And I have brought people certain things that didn't exist before in their life. And I brought people real opportunity. And I mean, somebody has an independent movie because of me coming out.
Really? Wow.
So basically, they had a comic book, and some directors saw them talking about the comic book because of my interview. And that director helped to pay for the screenplay to get graded. And now they're in the process of having investor relation meetings and raising money on a small independent budget film. That's probably $50,000 to $75,000 to shoot. So that's not a joke anymore. Guy paid me $20 to be on my show. I would say that's a pretty damn good return.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I got him on another 2 times, and I didn't charge him. He's like, yeah, man. So, and then the second interview did about 2,000 views, that interview, in 48 hours, with the average time of it being watched 34 minutes, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So again, that person is always happy to be on my show. And whenever I need something, or if I say, hey, could you send me some free comics? It's like, yeah, no problem. They don't even balk because they understand that I brought them something that didn't exist in their life. And so it's one of those things that, again, and I don't stroke my ego like that. I'm like, you don't owe me anything, but sometimes I make demands. Like, hey, could you send me a copy of your book, like signed, or, but it's going to cost him like $4. So I think, he owes me that.
Drop in the bucket. Yeah.
But I just want to be like, yo, dude, can you send it to me? And he's like, yeah, sure. But like, we have a good relationship. And the whole point is that, again, though, I know what my show brings to the yard. And it's not milkshakes. I can assure you that.
Ha!
Oh,
You got
but
me.
yeah, no, because I know what you're worth. I really do know what you're worth. I know exactly what you're worth. I also know the idea that, I mean, you've been on my radar for like 2.5 years as an interview. And I've seen you in a lot of different facets. I think you're funny, and I think that you bring something that doesn't exist in wrestling. And I know what you're worth. I know what Anthony Green was worth. I mean, I know exactly what Anthony Green was worth, and I know exactly how I took care of Anthony Green. Actually, Anthony Green I probably underpaid Anthony Green to some degree. I sponsored like 3 or 4 of his wrestling events, but he got me him twice, Josh Briggs, and Ava Everett.
Okay,
So,
that's cool. Yeah.
but I was happy to sponsor his events because I still got the sponsorship. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. You got some pub out of it.
And apparently Ava Everett did like my logo and stuff. I'm like, oh snap! She's like, I know what this logo looks like when she's on my show. She's like, oh, you're that guy. I'm like, oh, you designed it. Oh, it's great.
Oh, yeah.
It was a very funny moment.
Yeah.
Again, AG's great, and I was stupid enough to ask him. Just stupid enough to ask him before he became where he is today, which is beyond good. I don't feel comfortable asking him right now. I don't. I think he is too big for me. And it's that imposter syndrome. It really is.
I got it.
And look, he's doing a lot of cool stuff, and God bless him. God bless him. But I digress. A lot of cool matches, though. The Steve Stenson match was cool. I was hoping you were going to ride a cowboy, though.
Yeah, that was things at Wrestling Open have been taking a little more of a serious turn lately, just because I feel like
BRG needs a horse. He really does.
Yeah.
Did you see that tweet, by the way, that I sent to BRG? He got really angry about it, too.
Yeah.
So for everybody who wants to know that story, me and Tyree were talking because Tyree was on Taylor, and he's had his issues with the Stenson Ranch. So I said that maybe I should go speak to Drew and see how much money I would need to throw at Wrestling Open to get BRG to ride a horse into the ring. Like a real horse. And like he was not happy with that tweet. I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was a pretty funny tweet. And then I still think it's a funny tweet. And I mean, seriously, if somebody would go halfies with me and we get our horse, I think it'd be hilarious. If you were a real horse in, like Frankie Pickard did that in a match at H2O. And I thought it was the funniest thing ever, where he like was smoking a cig and riding a horse.
That's great. Yeah, I need more horses in wrestling.
But continue, please. Sorry, I had to interject that story.
It's fine. Yeah, I feel like things. I've been getting a little more serious at Wrestling Open because I don't know. I just feel like I'm kind of. I feel so like to all things full circle here. I feel like I'm worth more than I've been treated to at Wrestling Open. And granted, I haven't like won a lot or anything like that, but I know that I bring something to that show that other people won't, and I think that the audience there is there for it, and they're there. A lot of people watch the shows because I'm there. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you a question on that, because there was just a big issue in wrestling with Willie Mack and Impact, and Willie Mack walked away from Impact over money, and I respect Willie Mack for that, because I've walked away from deals over money, and I mean my job that I'm currently in, they actually offered me a lot more than what I was asking, so I really couldn't walk away. I had to walk in, which is always nice. I valued myself as X, and they offered me a lot more than that. Probably about 25% more than what I was asking.
Wow.
So, but there's another circumstance that was going on. There was like 4 choices that I couldn't go wrong, but I respect, getting back to you, I respect Willie Mack for saying, I know what I'm worth. I know that I can make almost double on the indies, and that promises haven't been fulfilled.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that it's the same circumstance here, but I think it's very important for wrestlers to know what they're worth and know what they should be making, knowing what they bring there. And look, I think everybody has to compromise too, where if you expect A and they want to pay you B, maybe you can meet in the middle at C if you both want to stay there and they want you there.
Yeah.
And obviously everything's a negotiation, but what is this like? Because it's very important. Knowing what you're worth is tricky, and understanding that you bring something to that show, because let's call it what it is. Employees right now have a lot of leverage in the workforce in every sector right now of America. They really do.
Yeah, it hasn't even really been like as far like a financial thing. It's been more of a, what am I doing on the show? So if I go there or if they announce that I'm on the show, or if I announce that I'm on the show, and a bunch of people are like, "Oh, that's cool, CPA's there, cool. I can't wait to see who is wrestling. Oh my God, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that." And then I get there, and it's kind of like, it's a very kind of like flippant, standoffish. Oh yeah, you're just gonna do this, whatever it is. And I do great, and I kill it, and the crowd's into it, and there's a lot of online engagement afterwards, and I still feel very just kind of like, I don't know, I just feel like I'm treated a certain kind of way, and I don't really enjoy it. That has been definitely driving me to maybe turn it up a little more lately at Wrestling Open, as far as being more serious and, just being more serious and having more of an icy demeanor, as it were, not towards the people watching, but more towards the guys that I'm wrestling. So yeah, there has been kind of a shift in the approach and the attitude and the matches and what I'm doing in there physically. But yeah, that's match was just another bump in that. Like, I know this guy probably looks at me like I'm a joke, and I need to come at him in a certain light, and that's why I didn't ride him as a horse. Is what I'm getting at.
I just want somebody just to come out to save a cowboy.
Yeah.
Ride a cowboy. What is it? Save a horse, ride a cowboy.
Yeah.
Rich.
Yeah. Exactly.
I just want somebody to come out with a horse, BRG on the horse, getting sick of his boss, and come out with some chaps.
Yep.
A hat.
Spurs.
Yeah. Everything he's got. Ride the horse right into Wrestling Open, and then lasso and throw his lasso down, and then jump off the horse. No. Make sure the horse is okay. Make sure the horse has its oats.
Yeah,
you gotta make sure your horse has its oats. Give the horse to a stable hand, and then take out Steven Stenson and do a good old yeehaw and reclaim his New Jersey ranch for himself.
Yeah,
that's what I want for BRJ. That's really what I want. I'm rooting for him, and I
want it now too.
I will sponsor part of that.
I didn't know I needed it. Now I do.
It's that match, and then I want a death match between Kennedy Copeland and Masha Slamovich in H2O.
Wow, that hasn't happened already. Huh.
It has not. But I want to make sure that there's plenty of Legos, so I will happily sponsor that match under that pretense.
Yeah,
but I also want front row tickets to it. So that I'll pay for the tickets. I just want the right to buy them. I will bring them Lego sets to play with. I have my own ideas for wrestling because I want to see this, right? And I'm in a very sharing mood. So what I would like to see, I am more than happy to put money up to make it happen as long as it's being streamed.
Yeah, of course.
because that's what I want to see. So it's kind of like custom wrestling just at a wrestling event.
Yeah, in front of people. Yeah.
I mean, I think to some degree, all these companies should really allow some fans to have some booking decisions here. Not pure bookings, but some guidance. Because come on, Masha Slamovich versus Kennedy Copeland in a death match. That's not obscure, but that would be a hell of a match.
Yeah, with the Legos too, that would add like a lot to it.
With Legos, light tubes, whatever. I don't really care. It'd be fantastic. Give them like
Light tubes made of Legos. Come on,
we might as well just buy them lightsabers, the cheap plastic ones.
that's that. I don't hate that. Maybe we could have like if May the 5th lands on a weekend next year, which I'm gonna look now and see if it does. I'm not even really a big Star Wars fan, but I'd be behind that. Not that I don't like it. I don't really want. May the 5th is on Friday next year. So
Oh my gosh, I should totally pitch this idea to Matt Tremont.
Just-
Like I should totally pitch this. Like, you know how good of a match that would be if
Yeah.
they just had like all these like light tubes that were then made out like looked like lightsabers and they lit up.
yeah, exactly. So
You would totally like just stop what you're doing and watch it. It'd be great.
Yeah.
It'd be the greatest main event ever. And then like in the middle they could just start playing Star Wars music. Oh, it'd be great. I don't know if they can do that legally, but I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great regardless. But
Yeah.
I don't know what type of money H2O has, but I think they could do this. I think that they could do this, and then like Kennedy Copeland could come out in like a Sith hood, and Masha could come out in like a stormtrooper helmet. Oh, it'd be great. It'd be
Yeah.
so good. Like I have this, like I'll book this entire match and produce it all for free, and I'll put real money into it too. I'll throw like $500 at this, easy, no questions asked. Like I wouldn't even balk at this. As soon as I get RKO'd by Randy Orton, that'd be great. But you want to be RKO'd too, don't you?
Yeah, of course. That would be pretty. I mean, yeah, why not? That would be sick.
I mean, getting RKO'd by Randy Orton. I mean, this is a real question. What would you rather have? Would you rather be curb stomped by Seth Rollins, RKO'd by Randy Orton, or attitude adjusted by John Cena?
Oh, John Cena, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, see, I don't want to be curb stomped because that doesn't sound fun, right?
No, I've been curb stomped. I got curb stomped one time, and like I didn't get a concussion when it happened, but afterwards I had like vertigo for like 2 weeks after that.
It doesn't.
Like my head was spinning.
It doesn't seem fun.
I don't want to do
getting
that.
attitude adjusted seems like a blast, and getting RKO'd is fun too, right? It has to be because it just looks cool.
Yeah.
Getting power bombed by Batista doesn't seem fun either.
Yeesh. I don't know.
But getting choke slammed by The Undertaker would be cool.
Yeah.
But I digress. This is like a morbid conversation now. I mean, clearly, I you got to like be like put down in a ring. Like, but anyway, enough about that. I clearly have run you through the ringer. I might have just spoken a lot, and I don't know who wants to hear my voice because I'm not really all that knowledgeable. I talk a lot of shit about wrestling, having never ever stepped into a wrestling ring. So God help us. But you're more of the expert in that area anyway than I am. But I am curious about one thing because, and then I'm going to give you a chance to promote. I feel that the biggest thing in wrestling the biggest change at the very least has been streaming. And I think that has changed the game for wrestlers, where now all these streaming places are the place to be, versus pre-taped, versus events not being recorded, versus, I can't think of something else that was the alternative, or just non-taped or anything of that, or even premiering events. And so how do you feel that wrestling has changed in the last 3 years, and what really the COVID era, I feel, has ushered in wrestling?
So I don't know. It's so if it's a Thursday, and so like occasionally Wrestle Pro or one will run shows on Thursdays. I'll get paid a fair amount of money. It's fine. I get and it's a lesser drive, but they don't really film the shows, and if they do, it's not put out anywhere. I pretty much do them I'll do those because, again, it's like a close drive, and I'll probably wrestle someone, new, or like someone who's having one of their first matches, so I could kind of see where they're at, etc. But being on Wrestling Open or the GCW Tuesday shows, the settlement shows that they've been doing that I've been a part of, those are like a different animal because you're like anytime, and I don't always assume that everybody knows who I am. I can't. You just can't, because there's so many goddamn wrestlers. You I'll do something in a match that I've done in every match for the past 6 months, whatever that happens to be. And I'll look at Twitter, and I'll just I'll just see someone losing their mind over a thing that I do that I've been doing in almost every match for X amount of time. And that, to me, makes the difference between, oh, I just had a match tonight, and oh, I just made someone lose their shit because I had a clip-on tie, or because I took my shirt off at the beginning of the match and I had a similar shirt on underneath. So to me, having that reach with someone who didn't know who I was up until I walked out to the ring and they said, "Who's this fucking schlub wearing a pink button-down shirt?" And then I did one thing that was non-physical that made them go, "Oh my God, I have to watch this guy now. I'm going to follow him on Twitter." Granted, it takes very little effort to follow someone on Twitter, but they did it. And now that is a new person that I want to use as a conduit for them to go to work the next day and say, "Oh my God, I watched this guy wrestle last night. He does this, this, and this, and he does this thing with a shirt." And then they're going to go to their mom and they're going to say, "Hey, Mom, I know you hate wrestling because I've been watching it for years and you always said how stupid it was, but this guy is coming to our town next month. We're going to go see him and you're going to fucking love it. It's a barrel of monkeys," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can use those people as a conduit to get my name, my brand, my silly, whatever people consider what I do, out to other people. So to me, that is very important. And even if I make less money because maybe there's less people at the show, or maybe it's just kind of like, the GCW shows, there's not a lot of space to sell merch. So as soon as the show is over, everybody leaves and we don't really get a chance, whatever. But that's an extra dozen, 100, 250, whatever, however many people who I can use as a conduit to get what I'm doing to other people's eyes and ears and minds and bodies and souls and whatever. So yeah, streaming is a very different animal, but it is very cool to consider the possibility that I can use it as a bridge to all these other people. Say, "Oh man, this CPA guy, that's pretty cool because he does this and this and this. I'm going to follow him on Twitter and I'm going to buy his silly shirt off of him, or I'm going to buy a sticker, or I'm going to whatever." It's cool. It's really cool. It's not even, yeah, of course it is like cool to like make a few extra bucks. But for me, it's just, you're into comic books. So like a comic book artist can say, "Yeah, I just put this fucking weird guy in the background on this frame or whatever." But then someone could say, "Oh man, that guy in the background's really cool. I'm that guy in the background." So now suddenly that random thing that's on a storyboard or on a frame or whatever. I'm not a big comic book person, so I'm probably butchering the terminology here.
You're pretty close. It's all good.
That random thing, that quote, that thing, that line suddenly becomes the most important thing to one person. And that's what I'm after. So selfishly.
And so even to go further into this, because I just want to ask you to follow up, and I'll give you a chance to promote, I promise. One of the things that I think about the settlement series with GCW and even Wrestling Open is that you're also increasing the name of your brand. And that's the thing. So a friend of mine was explaining with a comic friend of his is that he'll sell a book to a company called Scout, but then he'll go to a company like Second Sight Publishing, and then he'll do his own Kickstarter. And so he's selling his name on the book, not the book itself. And so with me, I'm not selling conversations in pop culture per se. Obviously, I'm selling that brand, but my brand matters. So now when you hear Andrew, the investor Davis, or you hear conversations in pop culture, you hear pop anime comics, all of a sudden, and I put my name on a product, you know that product is of a certain quality. And so I can make more money because I have built trust and I have built a name so that at a certain point, this is the whole thing I'm building on a comic book investing class. My name on that is going to carry more weight because I've built trust. And all of a sudden, when I have all these people and I'm saying, cool, I want to sign up. And then if I have 5 wrestlers who are prominent endorsing it, now a lot more people are going to feel more comfortable with me. Or they say, hey, this guy has done 600 interviews and he's teaching podcasting. I feel more comfortable. And 450 of them are really damn good. And they're the last 450 interviews he's done. I feel more comfortable. So that's how I view that too. And I think, but that's just my opinion. But I'll let you state whatever your opinion is because I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I think you're increasing the value of your name even more so than anything else.
Yeah, and that's very important. And that's, again, like that's like what I was saying before, like the quality over quantity thing. Back when I was doing a million shows every week and I was just going everywhere, that was for me to just try more stuff, just try to get myself in front of people, get myself in front of other wrestlers so they could say, oh, this CPA guy's good. Maybe, if something comes up on some dumb show I'm on in West Virginia or North Carolina or whatever, I'll say, hey, this New York guy's pretty good. We should bring him down. Now that I think I have that equity with other people in wrestling, I can now sort of get the avalanche effect going with people who consume wrestling. Because now I feel like people who consume wrestling are here. They're not going anywhere. I want to get to them. And I want to be good enough that they tell people that they know, hey, this dude's pretty good. Because to me, again, like I look at someone like Danhausen, he was on fucking Conan O'Brien's podcast. That's insane. That's what I want. I want that. I want to transcend the wrestling thing. I love wrestling. I'll do it as long as I can physically do it, but I want to do other things, and I want to bring it. I want to bring it to other places too. And if I'm the one bringing it to other places, great.
This is a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
Basically, this is what my business model is. I got no problem telling. I buy a comic on eBay. I buy a comic. I sell for 3 to 4 times on eBay. I then pay back myself on the item and buy a new item. eBay gets a fee. I put money aside for taxes, and then I'll pull in on a $60 item, maybe $18 in profit. And I take that money and I invest it in the stock market into a good growth dividend stock. Because the reason why is that there's going to get to a point where the comic market gets slower or it falls apart. But I have now moved it into a more stable asset. And so I've deleveraged out. And so I basically almost bought hard assets with soft assets. It is a good way to look at it. It's probably not the exact terminology, but I basically diversified. And then the only reason why I wouldn't go straight to the equity asset is because I'm trying to get more of the other asset. And I'm trying to get a 3x on that, or I'll get, $30 out of, that asset. And then I can buy like 2 stocks instead of 1. So there you go. So that's the whole thing. And again, I think every wrestler needs to understand how to do that because let's be realistic. You got a short amount of time that you could really do this. And anytime you could take what you're doing in a ring and move it elsewhere, there you go. Danhausen and Orange Cassidy should be in movies in all these cameo roles. And they should really think about doing that a lot quicker if they already haven't, because that's where the real money's at for them. But again, that's a whole economic podcast
Yeah.
for a whole nother day. And man, I should run that seminar for every fucking wrestler. Every wrestler needs to know this and needs to understand what to do with your money. But again, when I get my financial planning license, I'll be happy to run that seminar for everybody. Maybe June of 2023, July 2023.
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking about it because I think it'll be good for everybody, and you can all become my clients. So there we go. But I digress. I do want to give you a chance to self promote yourself before we get out of here because we've been talking for like 2.5 hours.
Oh my God. Yeah, we have. I didn't even notice.
And I have work tomorrow. I have a long day. I got an hour and a half commute in the morning.
I still got to go to the gym. I'm going to take like a 2-hour nap after this, and I'm going to hit up the gym. Because I gotta maintain this frame. I saw a picture of myself from 3 years ago, and I look, and I don't want to sound like a jerk saying this. I look like a fucking Greek god now compared to what I looked like 3 years ago. So I need to just build on that foundation.
I don't know where you live, but if you live close enough, maybe I should have you start training me. So I look like a Greek god too. I mean, this is just not working.
Believe me, I thought what I was doing at the time was working. It wasn't. I see it now, and I'm like, oh boy, you were aiming very low.
I mean, I think I'm pretty. I just want to say that I really like when people call me pretty. I tell myself I'm pretty every day, but I have a feeling I'm lying to myself. But
you know what? If you believe it, someone else will absolutely believe it. Trust me. Trust me on that. I'm at CPA Wrestles on all social media platforms, be it Twitter, be it Instagram. I think I should change the name of the Facebook page, but there is a Facebook page just for me. It's called CPA. I suppose that's very broad, but I don't really update it very frequently, which I guess I should. What do I have coming up? This Saturday, I'm in Rahway, New Jersey for Wrestle Pro. I'm in a barbed wire match, main eventing my first Rahway Rec Center show. There have been hundreds of shows at the Rahway Rec Center over the past bunch of years. Jersey All Pro used to run there. Ring of Honor has run a show there too. Wrestle Pro, this place, that place. It's pretty cool that I've gotten to this point where I can main event a Rahway Rec Center show, and there is apparently going to be a lot of people there. So that's, again, equity. We've reached a point where we can say, I main evented a show at the Rahway Rec Center. There are a lot of people there. That's what's called a draw in the business, apparently. Other than that, next Saturday, I'm going to be at Blitzkrieg Pro. I'm going to be challenging VSK for the Blitzkrieg Pro Bedlam Championship. I have a lot of other stuff coming up. If you follow me on social media, I promote the shit out of everything I'm doing, even if it's not important to anyone. So that's my spiel. I think I have a pro wrestling tee store too. I haven't promoted it in a long time, but I sold a shirt on there a few days ago. So I guess I should talk about it more. But yeah, that's what I'm doing.
And then obviously, I've been saying this for a while. You have to support wrestlers. So what that means, there's 3 things that you can do. Go to wrestling shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the easiest way. Go to wrestling shows, buy a ticket, because you're actually supporting everybody on the card. You're supporting the promotion. You're going to have a good time, hopefully. And that's the first thing you should do. If you do not want to go to a wrestling show or it's not near you, you should watch it on IWTV if it's there, or on Fight. Again, you can get Fight and IWTV separately for $160 for the year. So $160 will cover a boatload of wrestling for you. And then you can get Peacock, which will get you your WWE, which is another $60. So $220 gets you about 70 to 80% of the market in wrestling, which is crazy stupid at this point. If you told me 5 years ago $220 would get me 80% of wrestling and cover me collectively, I would have told you were crazy. But anyway, so that's the other thing, is that you can buy IWTV, because that is very helpful and very instrumental in making sure that you can see wrestling. And that's a way how to support, is just watching. Furthermore, tweeting at wrestlers and tweeting at promotions and commenting on it is a big deal as well. And it makes a difference, especially because a lot of promotions are smaller. Wrestling Open happens to be a very large promotion and have a big social media following, but there's plenty of promotions that do not. And so when you tweet at them, they actually greatly appreciate it. And a lot of those wrestlers will engage with you. So that's very cool as well. And then finally, obviously, a lot of companies do sponsor a wrestler. So that's something that you should think about as well, is sponsoring wrestlers makes a difference. It's very helpful. Also, you could buy wrestlers merch. And if you buy a t-shirt from a wrestler, that also is helpful because guess what? That's just money for them and it helps to cover what they're doing. And let's be realistic, every dollar a wrestler can get helps them go, especially if they're traveling a lot because gas is expensive right now. So that's something to keep in mind. And then you should be following them on Twitter or social media as well. So obviously I'm going to not push any more on that, but I'm going to quickly push my stuff. Obviously, I have my social media down below. It's Pop Anime Comics. You might, if you go to Beyond, you may or may not see my thing all over the place. I am sponsoring Reed Walker tomorrow, apparently. So that should be exciting at Wrestling Open. A bunch of my friends are also sponsoring people. So it's going to be a great show. Brother Greatness was sponsored by Drew Gluck, which is sort of cool. I think that's ultra hilarious in many, many ways. I'm sure there's an inside joke somewhere in there. I guess his collection plate worked this time. I'm going to totally bring that up tomorrow. Oh, it's going to be great. But in all seriousness, though, I do have a t-shirt right here. This is my t-shirt on Redbubble. You can go buy that shirt. Also, I have a Buy Me a Coffee. Also, if you would like to run ads on my show, feel free to hit me up. We can work something out. You know, I do a bunch of cool stuff, and I got a bunch of cool content coming for season 4 with a bunch of my friends who have already signed up for some cool stuff. So that could all be worked out. And yeah, I just appreciate people hitting me up. If you want to be a guest on my show, you can solicit me, but that doesn't mean I will accept you. But, you know, we can definitely see if something can be worked out as well. Because I'm always looking for interesting people. But again, you know, you may or may not get on my show. But having said all that, I'm out of ideas here. So I'm going to give you the final word.
I was listening to a Frank Turner song the other day, and he has one of my favorite lines of a song ever. If you're all about the destination, take a fucking flight. We are all on this weird little road together, and wherever we go is where we go. But be in the now. It's a thing that I'm slowly learning as I get older, and as I age in this weird underbelly of the entertainment business known as wrestling. And yeah, just let's all be in the moment. And I sell shirts directly from my Twitter, so buy shirts off of me. And little peek behind the curtain, I usually include a thank you card and some other cute stuff. So I'm getting new shirts soon, like probably this week. They're cool. They look like the album cover of Taylor Swift's 1989. I gotta go. I'm not a crook.
And everybody, that is a wrap.